Hey listener, welcome. I'm glad you could join me tonight. I'm your storyteller, and I'll be your companion as you drift off to sleep, or perhaps as you lie there wide awake, listening to this story, unsure if you'll ever fall asleep again. I didn't want to tell this story at first, but something happened recently, and I can't shake the feeling that it's still not over. I'm not sure who I can talk to about this, so I figured I'd share it here. Maybe someone out there will believe me. My name's Ethan. I'm 27. Live in a small one-bedroom apartment in Chicago. You know, just your typical city living. Work, friends, the occasional Netflix binge. Nothing too exciting. I work from home most days, freelance graphic design, so I spend a lot of time alone. And honestly, it gets pretty quiet. In those moments, I do what a lot of people do. Swipe through dating apps, trying to kill time or maybe find something real. I mean, I'd had some luck here and there, but nothing serious. That was until I came across her. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting at my desk, scrolling through Tinder, waiting for a client email. I was feeling kind of off that day, but nothing specific. You know how some days just feel weird for no reason? Anyway, that's when I saw her. Her name was Emily. Pretty, light brown hair, pale skin with a soft smile. The kind of girl who looks like she could be in a magazine, you know? Her profile was normal enough, no red flags. But something about the pictures caught my attention. At first glance, it was just your usual, here's me at a coffee shop and here's me on vacation vibe. But then, I noticed something. Every hour, her profile picture updated. Not like how people usually upload new pics. This was different. The image would change every time I checked, almost like she was swapping them in real time. At first, it didn't bother me. I figured she was just active on the app, maybe playing around with her profile, but then I started noticing something odd. With each update, her expression seemed off. She looked a little more tired in each new picture, a little more unsettled. Her eyes, which were once soft and welcoming, began to show something else, a kind of fear or maybe confusion, and there was something about the way she was holding herself that felt tense, like she was trying to hide something. I remember checking the app around 10 p.m. that night. The new photo had her looking at the camera, but her cheek was bruised, dark purple against her pale skin. It wasn't subtle. It looked like someone had hit her. I felt a jolt of unease in my chest, but I didn't think much of it. Maybe it was just an editing choice or she was posting older pictures, I thought. Then came the next update. This one was around 11:30 p.m. Her lip was split and her eye was swollen. It looked like the injuries were getting worse. I felt a little uncomfortable now, wondering why she was posting these pictures. I didn't think I should be seeing this. If something was really going on with her, why wasn't she reaching out to someone for help? I told myself I was overreacting. It was late, I was tired, maybe I was just reading into it. But then I checked again at 2 a.m. This time, her neck was bruised. The same dark purples and blues that had shown up on her face were now visible on her throat. And her hand, it was like it was covered in blood, or at least stained with something that looked far too real. My stomach turned. I couldn't stop staring at the photo, wondering if this was some sort of sick joke. But as I looked closer, something caught my eye, a faint reflection in the background. It wasn't obvious at first, but if you zoomed in, you could make out a figure standing just beyond the window behind her. A shadow. It was hard to say, but I swore it looked like someone was watching her. I felt an instant chill creep up my spine. I'm not proud of this, but I couldn't help myself. I swiped right. I was curious. Within seconds, I got a match. Her profile lit up with a "You've matched with Emily" message, and I froze. I wasn't sure what to say. I didn't even know if I should say anything, but my fingers were already typing. "Hey, are you okay? Your photos, they seem a little intense. Are you all right?" A moment later, I got a reply. The message came through so fast I almost didn't believe it. "Yeah, I'm fine, just dealing with some stuff, but don't worry about it." That was it. Nothing more. No explanation, just don't worry about it. I figured maybe she was just playing it cool, keeping things light, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I should have stopped there, but the next day, the photos kept changing. I checked her profile again, and this time, her hand was bruised, almost like she'd been restrained. My heart skipped a beat. I knew she had posted those pictures just a few hours ago, but the new photo was disturbing. And then I noticed something truly horrifying. As the images of Emily were getting more and more damaged, the same injuries started showing up in my apartment. It started small. I noticed a bruise on my forearm. I couldn't recall how it happened. I hadn't hit anything. I hadn't even bumped into anything. It was like it just appeared overnight. I told myself it was nothing. I was clumsy sometimes. But then the next morning, I found a small cut on the back of my neck. Again, no idea how it happened. At first, I thought maybe I was just stressed out, but it wasn't just bruises or cuts. One night, I went to bed around midnight. I woke up a few hours later, my neck feeling sore. Groggy, I rubbed at it, but then my fingers brushed against something wet. When I looked at my hand, I saw dark red smudges. Blood. My blood. I ran to the bathroom, heart pounding, and saw what I feared. A deep scratch on the back of my neck, long and raw, like someone had taken a knife to me. I didn't understand. How had this happened? It wasn't just the physical marks. I felt like I was being watched. I'd hear noises in my apartment, soft creaks, like someone was moving around when I wasn't looking. At times, I'd wake up to find things misplaced. My keys were on the counter when I was sure I'd left them by the door. My jacket was hanging up, even though I'd left it on the couch. And then, the worst part? I started hearing breathing. Soft, uneven, like someone was just outside my bedroom door. I wasn't sleeping anymore. I couldn't. I was scared to close my eyes because every time I did, it felt like something was waiting for me, watching me. I had to check Emily's profile one last time. This time, I froze. Her most recent picture was from just an hour ago, and it was me. She was standing in the exact spot in my apartment where I had woken up earlier that night. The same corner, same lighting, same shadows. I realized then that I hadn't told anyone about what was happening. Not my friends, not my family. I hadn't even called the police. It felt insane, like I would just be making it worse. I felt alone in it. I don't know what happened next. I lost track of the days. I think I was sleeping with the lights on. I couldn't leave my apartment for too long. The whole place felt wrong. Eventually, I deactivated my Tinder account. I blocked Emily's profile, but something still feels off. The bruises faded, but I still check behind me when I walk down the hall. I still feel like someone's in my apartment, and every now and then, I'll get a notification on my phone, some app or email, and for just a second, I think it's her, but it never is. Sometimes, I wonder if she's still watching me, if she's still there, somewhere. I don't know if I'll ever feel safe again, but if you ever see a profile like that, one that updates itself changing every hour, you should be careful. Sometimes, the scariest part isn't what happens. It's what could happen next. And trust me, you don't want to find out. Story 2. I'm Jake, and when this all happened, I was 27. I'd just moved into a small one-bedroom apartment in the city. Nothing too flashy, just a basic setup. Small living room, a kitchen that barely fit 2 people, a bathroom with a shower so cramped you'd have to be careful not to bump your elbow against the wall. The kind of place where the world outside felt just a little bit distant, like you could lose yourself in the hum of city noise. I was getting over a bad breakup, still figuring out my life. I worked as a graphic designer for a startup, so most of my days blurred into the other. I didn't have much of a social life, just a few friends I'd go out with when I could. Nothing too exciting. Life felt like it was just going on. I didn't expect much from dating apps. I'd tried a few here and there, met some people, but nothing ever clicked. The usual. But one night, in the middle of a mindless scroll, I matched with someone who seemed a bit different. Her name was Sarah. Her profile was simple, just a couple of pictures of her at the beach, in front of a mountain, a smile that seemed real, not like the others who always seemed to be pretending. She had a calm vibe about her that caught my attention. We talked for a few days, nothing crazy, just the usual. Hobbies, movies, work, the surface stuff. But then one evening, something weird happened. I remember I was sitting on my couch, scrolling through my phone when I got a text from Sarah. "Someone's going to knock on your door in 5 minutes." I laughed it off at first. It seemed like some quirky random thing she was saying. But then I looked at the clock on my phone. It was 9:12 p.m. 5 minutes later, I heard it, a knock on my door. I froze. My heart skipped. I didn't know what to make of it. I figured it was a mistake, maybe someone from the building with the wrong apartment number, but I checked the peephole, and no one was there. I opened the door, half expecting to see no one, but there was a delivery slip on the ground. No package, just a slip. I picked it up, turned it over, and saw a name I didn't recognize. I thought about texting Sarah, but I wasn't sure what to say. She couldn't have known about that. Could she? I shook it off as a coincidence. I mean, sometimes people knock on the wrong doors, right? And who else would know what time I was sitting at home? Still, I couldn't stop thinking about it. A couple of days passed and I felt off. It wasn't just the knock, but the way Sarah seemed to know things that didn't make sense, like how she'd always text me just before something small would happen. "You'll drop your coffee cup in the next 10 minutes. Sure enough, I'd knock the cup off the counter moments later. Or, "Your neighbor will walk by your window in 3 minutes. And then I'd watch through the blinds as my neighbor walked past, just like she said. At first, I tried to tell myself it was nothing, just little coincidences. Maybe she was lucky with her guesses. I even joked with her about it. She laughed, but then she said something that stopped me cold. "What if I could tell you something bigger, something more important?" I didn't reply right away. My phone buzzed a minute later. "In the next 10 minutes, something bad is going to happen to you." That's when I got scared. I felt it deep in my gut, the kind of cold you get when you know something's wrong, but you can't explain it. I didn't text her back. I didn't know what to say. But of course, 5 minutes later, the power went out. The whole building went dark. No warning, no storm outside, no flickering lights, just darkness. I stood there in my apartment, not moving for a moment. My pulse was pounding in my ears. Then, a few seconds later, my phone buzzed. Again. Sarah's name popped up on the screen. "Someone's going to break into your apartment in the next 10 minutes. You need to lock the door." I don't know what came over me, but I jumped up, rushing to the door, double-checking the locks, the chain, everything. Nothing happened. Not right away anyway. But when the lights came back on a minute later, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A note was under my door. No name, just one sentence. "I told you to lock the door." I couldn't breathe. I thought maybe I was losing it. Maybe I was reading too much into it. But this felt real. And that night, I didn't sleep. The next day, Sarah texted again. "You'll be fine tonight, but tomorrow, I'm afraid you won't be." I don't know why I kept talking to her after that. Maybe I thought I could figure out the trick behind it all. But the messages kept coming, and they kept getting more intense. The worst part was when she predicted how I would die. I still remember the message like it was yesterday. I was at work, sitting at my desk, when I saw it pop up. "In 10 minutes, you will get into a car accident. It will be fatal." I stared at the screen, confused. My hands were shaking. I wasn't even supposed to be driving that day. My car was parked, safe, at home. I tried to text her back, but my fingers wouldn't move. 10 minutes passed. I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me, and then the sound of a car horn blared outside. I jumped to my feet, looking out the window. I could see a car across the street speeding toward the intersection, and then the screech of tires. I ran outside, my heart racing. The car slammed into a tree. The impact was so hard, it sounded like thunder. The driver was alive but unconscious. I don't know why, but I couldn't look away. The scene felt like something out of a dream, like the universe was trying to show me something, to prove that she was right, that everything she'd said so far had been true. I didn't even feel safe driving home that night. The next message came through as I sat in my apartment, locked inside, not knowing if I was supposed to be terrified or in denial. "The countdown begins now. You'll die in 48 hours. 2 days. That's what she gave me. 2 days until my life would end. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I didn't trust anyone, not even myself. Everything I did felt like it was leading to that moment. I kept trying to find something, anything, to prove that this wasn't real. But when I checked the locks, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. A mark, a scratch, just above the deadbolt. It was fresh. I couldn't breathe. I ran to the window and looked down to the street below. A figure stood there, just watching. Sarah. But I knew it couldn't be her. Not in person. She wasn't even supposed to be in the city. I took a step back, my head spinning, my body trembling. And that's when the last message came through. You've already been marked. There's no escaping it now. I don't know how much time I have left. I'm telling you this because I don't want it to happen to anyone else. You don't realize how dangerous things can get until you've been on the edge of something you can't escape. So listen to me. If you get a message like that, don't ignore it. Don't take it lightly, because you never know when it'll be your countdown. Story 3. I've thought about it almost every day since, and to this day, I still don't know if I'll ever be able to fully understand what happened. Maybe hearing it from me will make you feel like it's just a weird coincidence or a bad dream, but I promise I haven't been able to shake it. I don't know if you're familiar with dating apps. Swiping left, swiping right, messaging random people and hoping for a connection. I wasn't a big fan of them at first. I mean, I didn't grow up with them. I used to meet people in person, but my job had me busy. And after a while, I got curious about this whole dating app thing. I was 28, living in a small apartment in the city, and my job was nothing special. I was just an office worker. Nothing that exciting, really. Anyway, one night, I decided to download an app called Spark. You probably haven't heard of it. It wasn't very popular. I matched with a girl named Lena. That's the name she went by. I remember her profile picture clearly. It was a photo of her standing near a lake, looking off into the distance. She had a beautiful smile, and her eyes were kind of captivating. At first, it was like any other conversation I had on these apps. But then things got different. We started talking a lot, every day really. I was surprised how quickly we clicked. She was funny, a little quirky, and her messages were always thoughtful. We'd talk about everything, from movies to random thoughts we'd had during the day. She'd even send me little voice memos sometimes, her laughter filling my phone as she'd share something funny. I'd send her photos of random moments, and she'd reply with things like, "I wish I was there," or "You have no idea how much I'd love to do that." It felt real, you know? It didn't feel like some app-based fling. It felt like I was talking to someone I'd known for years. After a few days of chatting, we decided to meet up. We set a date, just a coffee date at a small cafe I liked. The plan was set. Everything was moving forward. But then, something strange happened. The day before the date, I checked my phone like I always did, but when I opened the app, her account was gone. Not just inactive, completely gone. The messages we'd exchanged were still there, but her profile picture, gone. Her name, gone. It was like she had disappeared. I waited a few minutes, reloaded the app, but nothing changed. Her account was just gone. I told myself I was overreacting. Maybe she deleted it. Maybe she got cold feet or something, I thought. But deep down, something in my gut told me that wasn't the case. Something didn't sit right. I felt stupid for even thinking this, but I found myself staring at the empty space where her profile used to be, wondering if it was all just some kind of joke. That night, I went to bed with that nagging feeling still lingering. The next day, I didn't hear from her. The cafe I'd picked for our date was still on my mind, though. I kept thinking, maybe she'll show up anyway, and I'll get some kind of explanation. But then, something happened that I still can't explain. As I was getting ready to leave for work, I heard a soft rustling sound near my door. I thought it was just the wind, but then I saw it. A small folded piece of paper lying on the ground outside. It wasn't a note I was expecting, it was handwritten. The handwriting was neat, deliberate, and familiar. "See you tomorrow." That was it. That was the whole note. Just those words. My heart sank into my stomach as I stared at the paper. My first thought was that it couldn't be Lena. She'd deleted her account. She'd vanished. It wasn't her. But the handwriting, it was exactly like the way she wrote in her messages. I knew it was her, but how could it be? I stood there for what felt like forever, staring at the note, trying to convince myself it was some kind of sick prank. But it didn't feel like a joke. It felt wrong. Like something was about to happen, but I didn't know what. I didn't go to the cafe that day. I didn't even try to reach out to anyone. My mind was racing, and I couldn't stop thinking about the note. I kept telling myself I was just overthinking it. But what was really bothering me was that everything about this felt too intentional, too planned. The next day, I stayed home from work. I needed to know if anything else would happen. The hours dragged by as I waited for something, anything to give me some answers. Around noon, I heard the faint sound of footsteps in the hallway outside my apartment. It wasn't much, just the creak of floorboards and the soft shuffle of shoes, but it was enough to make my heart race. I stayed still, listening, waiting for it to stop. The footsteps came closer, and then they stopped, right outside my door. I stayed completely silent, my pulse pounding in my ears, but nothing happened. No knock, no more footsteps. Just silence. I couldn't take it anymore. I opened the door, only to find nothing. But there, lying on the ground, was another note. This time, it was more specific. "Don't worry, I'm not far." I thought I was losing my mind. I looked around the hallway, but there was no one there. I was alone. I tried calling the police, but when I explained the situation, they just brushed it off. "Sounds like someone's playing a prank on you," the officer said. "You should block the person from your app or just ignore it." I wanted to scream. It wasn't a prank, it was real. Something was happening, but I had no way of proving it. The next night, around 10 p.m., I heard the footsteps again. This time, they were more deliberate, more insistent. I stayed frozen, praying it was just my imagination. But then, there was a knock, soft at first, then harder, like they wanted me to answer. I was shaking, my hand on the doorknob, but I didn't open it, not this time. Whoever it was, I knew they were still out there, watching. I could feel their presence, and I couldn't help but wonder, what was the real reason they were doing this? Was Lena really gone, or was she still out there? I've moved since then. I don't use dating apps anymore, and every now and then, I think about that note and that girl and what it all meant. But the thing that really haunts me is the thought that someone I can't even identify, was waiting for me, watching me. I've never figured out what happened or why it happened. But if you're ever in a situation where something feels off, like maybe you're talking to someone online and things don't quite add up, just trust your gut. Because sometimes the scariest part isn't what happens, it's what could happen next. And as for Lena, I still don't know if she was ever real. I don't know if she was a ghost, a stalker, or something else entirely. But I do know one thing. She's still out there, watching, waiting. And sometimes, I swear I feel her eyes on me. Story 4. I wasn't expecting anything crazy to happen when I downloaded that dating app. I was 27 at the time, living in a small city on the edge of the suburbs. My life was pretty ordinary. A 9-to-5 job, weekends spent catching up on Netflix, meeting friends at the bar, maybe an occasional road trip to clear my head. Nothing too exciting, but I liked it that way. I had my little routines, you know? There was nothing really exciting about my love life either. I had a few relationships in the past, but most of them fizzled out after a few months. So when my friends started talking about using the dating app, I figured, why not? It seemed harmless, just a way to meet new people, see what was out there. At first, everything was fine. I matched with a few people, had some pleasant conversations, nothing that felt out of the ordinary. But then I met Ryan. I remember his profile picture. He was in a park, leaning against a tree with a half smile, his dark hair falling just right over his forehead. I wouldn't say he was my type, but he seemed nice enough. His messages weren't pushy. They didn't feel desperate like some guys on the app, so I figured, why not? We started chatting, and things progressed quickly. We talked about everything: my job, his interests, movies, books. He was easy to talk to. I was starting to like him. After a few weeks, he suggested we meet up for a coffee, and I agreed, of course. We picked a local cafe, somewhere familiar. Nothing fancy, but when I saw him in person, something felt off. It was subtle at first, a little too much eye contact, like he was studying me. His smile was a little too wide, too eager. But I told myself I was just overthinking things. After all, this was just a first date. We chatted for an hour or so. Everything seemed normal enough, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he was a little too interested in every detail of my life. I don't know how to explain it, but when we talked, I felt like I was being analyzed. Not in a creepy way, but it was definitely more intense than I was used to. Still, I brushed it off. Maybe he was just nervous. I mean, who isn't on a first date? A couple of days later, Ryan texted me again. He said he had a great time and asked if I wanted to hang out again. I agreed. This time, though, something felt different. I didn't notice it at first, but over the next few days, he started texting me constantly. At first, it was fine. Just casual check-ins like, "How's your day?" or "What are you doing tonight?" But then, the texts started getting more frequent. I'd get 3 or 4 in a row within minutes. When I didn't reply fast enough, I'd get another text, and another, until it felt like he was waiting for me to answer. And it wasn't just texts. He started showing up at places I frequented. The cafe I liked to go to on weekends. He was there. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. After all, it was a small town. But then I noticed he started being there when I was there. He would wave and smile like it was nothing. And every time I would ask him, "Oh, you come here a lot?" he'd say, "Just thought I'd stop by and see if you were here." I brushed it off as just a coincidence. Maybe he just liked the same things I did. But then, things started to get more invasive. I went to the gym one morning, and as I was finishing up on the treadmill, I saw him across the room. He was just standing there, watching me. When I walked out, he was there too. His car was parked across the street. That's when my stomach dropped. I tried to ignore it. I told myself I was overreacting, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. I knew something wasn't right. The next day, I was walking through the grocery store, and there he was again. Right behind me in the aisles, I could feel his presence even when I wasn't looking at him. I kept glancing over my shoulder, and every time he was there, a little too close. I started texting my friend, asking if she could meet me after work. I needed to talk to someone. "Am I crazy?" I asked her. "I don't know if I'm imagining this, but I think he's stalking me." She tried to reassure me. "You're just overthinking. Maybe he likes you a lot." But her voice had a hint of uncertainty. The next time I saw him was the worst one yet. I'd just finished a late shift at work, and when I walked out of the building, I saw his car parked near the entrance. He was sitting inside, his eyes locked on me. The moment our eyes met, he smiled. That same unsettling smile. I froze. I turned to walk away quickly, but before I could even get a few steps, he was out of his car and walking toward me. "Hey, I just wanted to make sure you were okay," he said, his voice too calm, too controlled. "You didn't answer my text today." I was worried. I didn't know what to say. My heart was pounding in my chest. I had to get away. Without saying anything, I turned and started walking faster. I could hear him following me, his footsteps quickening to match mine. "Wait, I just want to talk," he called out. I broke into a run. I didn't stop until I reached my apartment, and even then, I kept checking the windows, convinced he was watching me from outside. I called the police the next morning, but when they got involved, things only got worse. They talked to him, told him to leave me alone, but he wasn't arrested. They couldn't prove anything. No real evidence of stalking, just a lot of weird coincidences. A week later, I woke up in the middle of the night to a sound outside my window. I pulled back the curtain, my heart in my throat, and saw his car parked just across the street, engine off, lights dim. He was sitting inside. I didn't know what to do. I could barely breathe. It wasn't until 2 weeks later that things took a turn. I was walking home from work, my nerves shot from all the tension, when I saw him standing at the end of the street. He wasn't even trying to hide anymore. "You don't have to be scared of me," he said, his voice smooth. "I just want to be with you." I didn't wait to hear more. I ran. I got inside, locked the door, and didn't leave for days. After that, I started taking precautions. I changed my phone number, blocked him on everything, and told everyone around me what was happening. I didn't even feel safe in my own home anymore. Now, years later, I still think about him. I still get nervous when I hear footsteps behind me in a quiet street. I don't use dating apps anymore. And honestly, sometimes the scariest part isn't what happened. It's knowing that someone out there can do all that without even trying. They don't need a reason. They just need an opportunity. So if your gut tells you something is wrong, listen to it. It might be the only thing keeping you alive. Story 5. This story isn't one of those spooky ghost types. No, this is much worse because it's real. It's something that happened to me, and if you've ever used a dating app, maybe it'll make you think twice the next time you swipe right. I still don't know if I should have gone on that date. It was a few years ago, and I was living in a small apartment in the city. I was in my mid-20s, trying to get my feet under me after college, working some boring 9-to-5 job in marketing. My social life had become a blur of office happy hours, binge-watching Netflix, and the occasional awkward first date through a dating app. You know the type. Endless swiping, followed by chatting for a few days, then an awkward coffee or drink where you quickly realize you're not a match. I was getting used to it. Nothing special. Just filling the emptiness, I guess. I'd had a string of bad luck with dating apps, but one night I came across her profile. Her name was Sophie. Now, there was something a little strange about her pictures. They weren't your usual filtered selfies. No, her profile photos were all blurry, like heavily blurred. Her eyes, her smile, her features, everything was obscured in a soft, ghostly haze, but I was intrigued. She didn't have much written in her bio either, just a few cryptic sentences. I like to keep things mysterious, and some things are better left unseen. To be honest, I thought it was just some weird gimmick or a person trying to be quirky. I mean, we've all seen profiles like that, right? But I swiped right anyway. What did I have to lose? We started chatting, and I'll admit, I was curious. She didn't seem like anyone I'd usually match with, too intriguing, too distant, but there was something about her that I couldn't quite shake off. We talked for a few days, light conversation at first, just casual stuff. And then, one evening, she asked if I wanted to meet up. I remember feeling nervous but also excited. The idea of finally meeting her was, well, something I wasn't used to. We made plans for a cafe in the city center, a place I went to often, so it felt safe. I figured if the date went badly, I'd at least be in a familiar spot, surrounded by people. The day of the date, I arrived early. I always do that. Nerves, I guess. The cafe was busy, filled with the usual hum of conversation and the scent of coffee and baked goods. I ordered a latte and sat by the window, watching for her. My mind kept racing. What would she look like? Would she still be wearing that strange blur in real life? I tried not to think too much about it. Then, she walked in. She was tall, wearing a long, dark scarf wrapped around her neck and covering most of her face. Her hair was long and black, almost obscuring her eyes. For a second, I thought maybe she had some sort of medical condition, or maybe she was just really shy. She wasn't unattractive by any means, just distant. "Hi," she said, her voice soft and quiet, almost hesitant. "I'm Sophie." We shook hands, and I remember feeling that strange chill in the air, like something wasn't right, but I couldn't put my finger on it. She sat down, and we started chatting. Her voice was calm, almost soothing, but every time I looked at her, I couldn't help but notice how she kept her face hidden behind that hair and scarf. It was like she was deliberately avoiding eye contact. I tried to ignore it. Maybe she was just shy. But as the conversation went on, something started to nag at me. Every time she turned her head, slightly, or when she moved to take a sip of her drink, I caught a glimpse of her reflection in the window. Her face, no, not just her face, her entire reflection didn't match. It wasn't just the lighting or the angle. It was like the face in the window wasn't hers at all. At first, I thought I was imagining it. I mean, maybe the reflections were distorted. Maybe it was a trick of the light. But then I looked at my phone, checked the screen. There it was again. Her reflection, but different. The shape of her face wasn't the same. Her hair, her eyes, even her nose, it was all wrong. It looked like a completely different person. I stared at my phone, trying to make sense of it, my heart suddenly pounding. "Are you okay?" she asked, looking up at me from behind the scarf, her voice sounding concerned, but I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. It felt like the world had tilted, and I was standing on the edge of something I didn't understand. "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile, still looking at the phone. "Just tired, I guess." I tried to brush it off, but the feeling of unease only grew stronger. As every time she moved, I caught glimpses of that reflection, different, shifting, like it was never her. I didn't know what to do, what to say. I couldn't even look at her directly. I kept thinking, maybe I'm just tired. Maybe I'm overthinking this. But then, as if the universe decided I needed to be sure, the reflection changed again. This time, it wasn't just a small shift. The face in the window didn't even look human. It was too smooth, too perfect, with eyes that were too wide and too dark. A grin, no, a smile, spread across the reflection's face, and it wasn't hers. I couldn't breathe. I had to get out of there. "I think I need to go," I said, standing up abruptly, my hands shaking. Sophie didn't say anything at first. She just watched me, her expression unreadable. But there was something off about it, something strange in the way she was looking at me, almost like she was amused. She stood up too, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe she was going to leave with me. But no. She simply smiled softly, that same strange, unreadable smile. "Goodbye," she said. "Take care." I left the cafe as quickly as I could, practically running out of the door. The air outside was cold, and I tried to shake the feeling of dread that had settled in my chest. But as I walked, I kept feeling that same unease, like someone was following me, watching me. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see her there, but I never did. I didn't think I'd ever hear from her again. But the next day, I got a message on the app. Just a single sentence. "I saw you looking at my reflection." I froze when I read it. How could she have known? I hadn't said anything about it. I hadn't even reacted aloud, but there it was, the confirmation that she had been aware of everything. I didn't respond. I just deleted the message, and then the strange things started happening. Over the next week, I noticed her profile was still there, still blurred, but I wasn't swiping anymore. She kept sending messages, little things, no big threats, nothing obvious, just subtle little notes, as if she was watching me. One night, I found a photo of my apartment door in my inbox, taken from across the street. I never told her where I lived, but she knew. The last message I got from her, the one that really sent a chill down my spine, was, "We're not done yet." I deleted the app. I blocked her, and I changed all my settings. I moved to a new place a month later, far from the city, but I still feel her presence. And sometimes when I pass a window, a mirror, or check my phone, I see her reflection, her smile, that same smile from the cafe. That's not hers. Sometimes I wonder if she's still out there, watching, waiting. I don't know if she's human or something else. All I know is that her face is a mystery I will never solve, and I don't think I want to. You should trust your gut, listener. Sometimes it's the only thing keeping you safe. Story 6. My name's Jake, and at the time this happened, I was 26. I lived in a small apartment just outside of the city. It was a quiet, kind of boring place, nestled in between a few rundown buildings and an old coffee shop that never had customers. I had a typical job. I worked in a call center for a tech company. My life wasn't anything special. I wasn't unhappy, but I wouldn't call it exciting either. I was single, mostly kept to myself, and didn't do anything too crazy. Weekends were just Netflix and delivery food. The kind of guy you might not notice in a crowd. Then came the app. I downloaded it on a whim one night after a couple of drinks. A dating app. I'd heard about it from some friends, and after swiping through a few profiles, I matched with someone. Her name was Emma. At first, everything felt completely normal. Her profile was cute, pictures of her hiking at coffee shops, smiling in the sunshine. I sent her a message, we exchanged a few texts, and it seemed like one of those casual online connections that might lead nowhere. But whatever, I figured it'd be nice to chat. One of the first things that made Emma stand out, though, was how quickly she started sharing details about her day. Not just texting, but almost immediately after I would text her, she'd send me her location. "Hey, I'm at the park," or "I'm at this great little diner." I thought it was a little odd at first, but maybe it was just how she was, one of those people who likes to share everything. I didn't think too much about it, but then it started to get strange. I'll be honest, I didn't want to ignore her. She was fun to talk to, so I just kept going with it. But soon, she started sending me her location more frequently, even when she wasn't directly messaging me. Every couple of hours, there'd be an update. I'm at the library, I'm at this new bar, I'm by the beach. The location seemed pretty normal at first, until one night, after a couple of weeks, I noticed something. Her location kept getting closer to my apartment. At first, I thought it was coincidence. She'd mentioned being at a place a few miles from me, then a little closer. I told myself it wasn't anything to worry about, that she just happened to be near. But as the days went on, it became more frequent. The places she sent were getting closer, almost too close. One evening, it was like she was tracking me. I'd gotten home from work and, as usual, checked my phone. There was a notification from her. I opened it. "Hey, I'm at the corner of your street," she wrote. I froze. I didn't respond. I told myself it was a mistake. She must have been out running errands, or maybe it was a random coincidence. But I couldn't shake the feeling. Later that night, around 9:30, I got another message. "I'm at the park across from your building." That's when I really started feeling uneasy. I was home, alone, sitting in my apartment with the blinds drawn. I could hear cars passing outside and the distant sound of people talking. But nothing was out of the ordinary, right? I convinced myself it was just a coincidence. Maybe she was out with friends, maybe she liked walking near my area. Then, at 11:30, I received another ping. It was from Emma. "Hey, I'm just down the block. What's up?" I stared at the message for a while, unsure of what to do. I was tired. The last thing I needed was some stranger hanging around my neighborhood. That night, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. I slipped on a jacket, grabbed my keys, and left my apartment. As I passed the street corner she mentioned, I looked around. No one was there. I told myself it was nothing, that maybe I was just paranoid. When I got back to my place, I sat down on the couch and checked my phone again. I noticed she'd sent me another update. This time, it wasn't just a location, it was a message. "Hey, I'm almost there." That was when my stomach dropped. I started second-guessing everything. Should I text her back, tell her to leave, or was I overreacting? The messages kept coming. "Almost there. I'm close now. I'm right around the corner." It was about 2:45 a.m. when the last one came through. Arrived. I opened the app, my heart pounding. I checked outside my window. There was nobody there. I felt a wave of relief, but it didn't last long. Something was off. Maybe I didn't look hard enough. I stepped to the front door, peering through the peephole. Nothing. I sat back down, still unsure. Then, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Emma. "Are you awake?" she asked. Now, I was genuinely frightened. My hands were shaking. What did she mean by arrived? What did she want? Why was she still messaging me when I hadn't even invited her over? I decided to check my front door. I wasn't thinking clearly, but there I was, stepping quietly down the hallway, trying to listen for anything. No one at the door. But then, there was a soft sound. A tap. It came from inside the apartment. My heart stopped. I didn't know what to do. I knew I was home alone. I hadn't heard anyone come in. I called the police. They said they would be there in 10 minutes, but the time felt like it was stretching into hours. Every second felt like a century. I grabbed a baseball bat from the closet, my hands slick with sweat. I thought I heard something moving in the kitchen. I couldn't breathe. When the officers arrived, they searched the place top to bottom. They didn't find anything. No one was hiding. No sign of forced entry. Nothing. But here's the thing. When they checked the locks on the window near the fire escape, they found that it had been unlocked. It wasn't like that when I went to bed. And the worst part? The worst part was that Emma never messaged me again after that night. The police couldn't find anything, and after a few weeks I chalked it up to just a bizarre, creepy incident. But something inside me changed that night. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been in my apartment. I started double locking my doors, installing security cameras, and deleting all my dating apps. I told myself I was being paranoid, but I couldn't help it. That feeling didn't go away. Every time I walked home, I'd check behind me. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach would twist with dread. I haven't used a dating app since. Sometimes the scariest part isn't what happened. It's knowing it could happen again. You never know who's out there, watching, waiting for their chance. People like that don't need a reason. They just need an opportunity. If your gut tells you something's wrong, listen. It might be the only thing keeping you alive. Story 7. This story starts on a regular Tuesday, the kind of evening where you're just killing time, scrolling through your phone, half watching TV. You know how it is. I had just finished a long shift at the bar, and I was feeling a little bored. And like most people, I decided to open up a dating app. I'm not proud of it, but I guess it's something we all do when we're looking for connection, or at least someone to talk to. Her name was Anna. Simple, right? I thought it was at first. A cute name, a cute girl. Her profile was interesting enough. She had a few pictures, mostly taken in dimly lit settings. Some of them were in alleyways, others in what looked like empty rooms with nothing but shadows stretching across the floor. And then there were a couple of her standing alone in forests at night. Everything about her photos felt off, like they were taken in places people don't go unless they're trying to hide something. But it wasn't too strange. I mean, maybe she liked dark places, right? Some people have quirky interests, so I sent her a message, a simple "hey" to start. We hit it off almost immediately. Her responses were quick, witty, and funny. We talked about normal things, music, movies, food, the usual. But then, as we were chatting about our hobbies, I asked her why all her pictures were taken in such dark places. I was trying to be funny, so I said, "You're always in places with no light. Are you a vampire or something?" She didn't respond with the usual lol or haha. Instead, she replied, "I don't go out during the day." I laughed it off. I thought she was just playing along, making some weird joke. But something in her response stuck with me. Why would anyone, especially someone my age, avoid the day entirely? I figured it was just one of those oddball things that people say on dating apps to sound mysterious. So I let it go. But the more we talked, the more it felt like something was wrong. We began talking every day. Each time I opened my messages, she was there, waiting. But there was one thing that kept bugging me. Her photos, the shadows, the way they didn't seem right. I wasn't a photographer, but I'd seen enough pictures to know that shadows don't always look the same. And in every single one of Anna's photos, her shadow was off. It was as if the shadows in the pictures were stretching in ways that didn't make sense. They looked wrong, too sharp, too angular. They didn't match the shape of her body at all. I didn't want to sound paranoid, so I kept my thoughts to myself. But the more I looked at them, the more unsettled I became. So one night, I asked her about it. I don't know why I did. It just seemed like a weird thing to mention, but I said, "Hey, I've been thinking about it. Your shadows in those pics. They're kind of weird, like they don't look like a person's shadow. Is it the lighting or?" Her reply was quick, as usual. "You noticed?" My heart skipped a beat. What did that mean? "Yeah, I guess," I typed back. "I mean, it's like your shadow doesn't match you. It's hard to explain." I sat there for a while, waiting for her to respond. She didn't. And when I say she didn't respond, I mean she didn't reply for hours. I almost forgot about it. But then, at around 3 a.m., I got another message from her. "I don't go out during the day, remember? The shadows at night are different." I stared at my screen for a minute, unsure of how to react. My gut was telling me something wasn't right, but I was too far in now, you know? We'd already had such a strange connection, and I didn't want to seem like I was overreacting. So I tried to laugh it off. "That's a little creepy," I texted. "You mean like the shadows in your pictures are different at night? Are you sure you're not just messing with me?" Her next message came instantly. "I'm serious. I don't think you understand what I mean." I let the conversation drop after that. Something about it made me uncomfortable. I figured it was just a weird chat and we'd get back to normal next time. But after that, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The next day, I did what anyone would do. I Googled her name, not just to see if I could find her on other apps, but because I needed to know what was really going on. I don't know why I felt like I had to. It was as if something deep down told me to look closer. And that's when I found something. I found a profile on another site, a much older one. It was Anna, but the profile was much darker, more serious. The pictures were the same, the alleyways, the empty rooms. But there was something new too. The photos weren't just of her in dark places, they were of her standing alone in places where no one would stand. Abandoned buildings, dark streets, fog-covered forests. And there was one thing that wasn't in her new profile: the shadows. They weren't there at all. I didn't know what to make of it, so I messaged her again, my fingers shaking. "Anna, I've been looking at your old profiles, your photos. There's something wrong with them. Where are the shadows in your other pictures? Why do they look like that?" This time, she didn't answer at all. The next day, I got a notification that she had deleted her profile. I never heard from her again. But even after that, something still didn't sit right with me. My mind kept going back to those shadows, how they didn't make sense, how they weren't human. Months passed and I moved on, or at least I tried to, but there was always this nagging feeling in the back of my mind, like something unfinished. And then, one evening, as I was scrolling through my feed, I came across a new post, a photo that took me by surprise. It was a photo of her, Anna, taken in an alley. Alone, of course, but this time, there was something in the background of the photo, a shape, barely visible in the dark, a shadow. Only, it didn't look like a shadow at all. It was tall, twisted, and jagged. It was as if it didn't belong to her at all. And then, for the first time since I'd met her, I felt my blood run cold. Because this shadow, it wasn't hers. It was mine. You know, sometimes the scariest part isn't the things we see. It's the things we don't. The things we miss. It's that feeling in your gut that tells you something's off, even when you don't have all the answers. If I'd trusted that feeling sooner, maybe I would have known to stay away. But now, all I can say is this. If you meet someone online, be careful. They might not be who they say they are. And sometimes, what looks like a shadow isn't a shadow at all. It's something else. Something watching. And it could be watching you right now. Story 8. This isn't a story for the faint of heart. It's about a connection I thought would be just another harmless date until everything changed and I started questioning my reality. It's funny how something so small can lead to a nightmarish spiral. I didn't know at the time, but meeting her would change everything I thought I knew about trust and the dangers lurking in the digital world. My name's Jacob. I was 28 when this happened. I work in marketing, nothing glamorous, just your average 9 to 5. I live in a small apartment downtown, nothing fancy but enough for me to feel comfortable. Life, at that time, was the kind of predictable monotony that comes with working a job you don't hate but also don't love. I'd get home, watch a few shows, scroll through my phone, maybe grab dinner with friends. There wasn't anything unusual about my routine. It was a comfortable, maybe even boring life, but I never minded. I'd been single for a while and, like a lot of people these days, I tried a few dating apps. I wasn't expecting anything serious, but I figured it wouldn't hurt to meet someone new. That's how I came across her, Amelia. Her profile picture was simple, just her smiling under some trees. It wasn't flashy or staged, just a normal girl with a calm, easygoing vibe. We hit it off quickly, and I found myself looking forward to our conversations. She was smart, funny, and shared a lot of interest with me: movies, hiking, books. She was exactly what I was looking for, which I guess should have been my first red flag. We exchanged numbers after a week, and soon we were texting all the time. I'll admit, I didn't really know what I was expecting, but I liked the way we clicked. One night, after a long conversation about our favorite horror films, I decided to ask her out for coffee. She agreed almost instantly, and we set the date. I couldn't wait. The day of our coffee date, I was running a little late. It wasn't anything unusual. Work had dragged on longer than expected, and I wasn't as prepared as I thought I'd be. But when I arrived at the cafe, she was already there, sitting by the window. She looked just like her pictures. Her hair was a little longer than I expected, but everything else was spot on. The moment I saw her, I knew this was going to be something special. We sat down and started chatting, and honestly, the date went perfectly. Everything about her felt so real, so natural. She was even more beautiful in person, but there was something strange. It wasn't her looks, but the way she seemed to observe everything around her so carefully. She smiled, but there was this unsettling stillness about her. It was like she was always a second behind, like her thoughts were a step too far away from where her body was. I tried to ignore it, thinking I was just overthinking, but after the date, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. I didn't hear from her that night or the next morning, which was a little odd considering how much we'd been texting. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe she was just busy. Then, a few days later, I got a message from her out of the blue. "I had a great time the other day. Let's hang out again soon." That was all she said. I responded, and we made plans to meet up again, but the odd feeling didn't go away. It wasn't until a week later, after a second date, that things started getting strange. She started sending me photos, nothing weird, just pictures of random places she had been. At first, I thought nothing of it. One day, she sent a picture of an old, overgrown cemetery with the caption, "I've always loved quiet places like this. They make me feel at peace." It was the kind of photo that could have been taken anywhere, but something about it felt off. I did a quick search on my phone and found out that the cemetery was located in a small, abandoned town about an hour away from where I lived. It wasn't the town I was familiar with, but when I mentioned it to her, she simply said, "I don't go there often. It's just a place I've been thinking about lately." Then, the day after, she sent me another photo, but this one was different. It was a map of the same town. I didn't think much of it at first, but the more I looked at it, the more it bothered me. The town had been abandoned over 20 years ago, after a devastating fire that had destroyed most of the buildings. The fire was mysterious, with no real explanation for how it started, and the town had been left to decay. It was just a forgotten place. And yet, Amelia seemed fascinated by it. Curiosity got the best of me, so I did some digging. I pulled up news articles, and that's when I learned the truth. The fire had killed dozens of people. But here's the thing that didn't make sense. No one had been able to explain why the town was still uninhabited. They had tried to rebuild after the fire, but no one ever came back. The property was abandoned, and it remained untouched. No new residents, no new businesses, just empty, charred houses and streets slowly fading into nature. I sat there, staring at the screen, a chill creeping over me. Why was she so fixated on a town like that? The more I thought about it, the more I realized I knew almost nothing about her. I asked her once about her past. Where had she grown up? What had she done before moving here? She told me she had grown up in a small town, a town no one's ever heard of. She said she didn't like to talk about it, but it wasn't a big deal. When I pressed her, she just laughed it off and changed the subject. I should have let it go right then, but I didn't. I kept pushing for answers, maybe thinking she would tell me something I didn't already know, something that would make sense of all this. That night, I did something I don't normally do. I checked her location history on her profile. It was an option on the app, and I'd never thought about it before. But with all the weirdness, I couldn't help myself. Her location history was odd. I scrolled back and found that her last recorded location wasn't even near the city. She'd been in that same abandoned town over and over again. But there was something even more chilling. She had visited the town in the middle of the night, multiple times. Her last visit was 2 nights before our date. I froze. I knew something wasn't right, but it wasn't until the next day, when she showed up at my apartment unannounced, that I realized just how deep this was. I didn't invite her over, but there she was, standing at my door, smiling that same strange smile. "I thought I'd surprise you," she said. That's when I felt it. The panic, the cold sweat creeping up my spine. Something wasn't right. This wasn't just a girl I met on a dating app. This was something much darker. I called the police that night. They didn't do much. They said there was nothing they could really do unless she was physically threatening me. I tried to tell them about the visits to the abandoned town, the strange behavior, the way she knew things about me that she couldn't have known. They didn't care. "You're probably just overreacting," they said. "People get obsessed. It happens." I couldn't sleep for days after that. Every little noise in my apartment made me jump. I started locking every window, every door, but it didn't stop her. She showed up at my work. She sent me messages, sometimes nothing but cryptic symbols, sometimes just a simple, "I'm waiting for you." And then, she was gone. No messages, no photos, no surprise visits. Just nothing. I wish I could tell you the story ends there, but it doesn't. Every time I think I'm safe, I hear something. A knock at the door when no one's there. A shadow in the corner of my eye. Sometimes I even think I see her in a crowd, just standing there, watching. The scariest part of all? I don't think I'm the only one. I think Amelia's been following others for years. People like her don't need a reason. They just need an opportunity. So if you ever feel like something isn't quite right, like something is just a little off, it's not nothing. It's real. And it could be happening to you. Story 9. I remember the first time it happened, so clearly. I was 24, living alone in a small apartment in the city. It was late, like 2 a.m., and I was mindlessly scrolling through my phone, half watching Netflix, half distracted. You know how it goes when you're lonely, just flicking through a dating app, hoping to connect with someone, anyone. I didn't expect much, honestly. I just swiped left on another profile when something strange popped up on my screen. It was a message notification, and the name on the profile didn't ring a bell. It wasn't anyone I'd matched with or anyone I had any kind of conversation with. The profile picture was a blank silhouette with the words "account deleted" underneath it. My thumb hovered over the message. I almost ignored it, thinking it was just a glitch or spam. But then, the message itself made me freeze. "I see you looking at your phone right now." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. It wasn't like the message was threatening or anything. It wasn't even mean. It was just too specific, too real. I mean, it was the middle of the night, but who would know I was staring at my phone like that? I shook it off as some weird coincidence or a prank, but I couldn't get it out of my head. It felt off, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't double-check my apartment's locks that night before going to bed. The next few days, I convinced myself it was just some odd glitch, but then it happened again. Exactly the same time, 3:03 a.m. "I see you checking the door. You don't need to check again." This time, I was sitting at my desk, trying to finish some work for a project. The door was already locked, but I'd gotten up to check it again anyway. It was a nervous habit, I guess, but the fact that this anonymous profile knew that, well, I can't tell you how much my hands started to shake. I quickly blocked the account, thinking maybe someone was just messing with me. But the next night, same thing. Another message from the profile, right at 3:03 a.m. "Stop looking at the window." And the weirdest thing? I was looking at the window. I could feel my heartbeat pick up. It was like this person, or whatever it was somehow watching me. I tried to brush it off, but my instincts told me something wasn't right. This wasn't just a coincidence anymore. It's funny how paranoia works. You try to convince yourself it's nothing, but the more these things happen, the more you start looking over your shoulder, checking corners, wondering if someone's standing just out of sight. I told a couple of friends about it. Of course, they laughed it off. "It's just some weird app bug," one of them said. Another joked, "Maybe it's just your ex trying to mess with you." But it wasn't just a message. It felt personal, like whoever this person was, they knew me. They were watching me. Then, it escalated. A week later, around the same time, 3:03 a.m., the message appeared again. I see you sitting on the couch, scrolling through your phone. You're about to pick up a glass of water. That stopped me cold. I hadn't moved since I'd settled onto the couch. I had a glass of water right next to me. There was no way anyone could have known that, unless they were right here, right now. I immediately texted a friend to see if I was being paranoid, but she didn't answer. I stared at my phone for a long time, staring at the account deleted profile. I tried to ignore the rising panic in my chest, but then it happened again, and again. Stop looking at the clock. It's 3:03. You're tapping your foot. Stop tapping your foot. You're thinking of closing the blinds. Don't bother. These weren't just guesses. They were spot on, details only someone who was inside my apartment could know. I was terrified. What did they want? What was happening? I changed all my privacy settings, deleted my dating profile, and reported the account. But the messages didn't stop. Every single night at 3:03 a.m., the same profile, the same chilling messages. I started to avoid the app, leaving my phone off at night. But somehow, at exactly 3:03 a.m., I'd wake up. It felt like something was pulling me out of sleep, like a force I couldn't escape. And every time, without fail, there would be another message waiting for me. I felt like I was losing my mind. I stopped feeling safe in my apartment. The small details, the things this person knew, kept haunting me. One night, the message was, "I can see the reflection of your phone in the window." And I swear, I looked at the window right after I read it. There was nothing there. But I was starting to feel like something was. One morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I called the police. I told them everything. The strange messages, the profile, how it seemed like someone was watching me. They were kind, but they couldn't really do much. The account was deleted. The messages weren't illegal. It was just a weird, creepy prank, they told me. I tried to feel reassured, but I didn't. A few days later, something happened that made my blood run cold. I had the blinds drawn, but I felt an odd compulsion to look out the window. So I did. I didn't see anything. But as soon as I turned away, I heard a faint tapping on the glass. I slowly turned back toward the window, and I swear there was someone standing there, just out of my reach. The person didn't move, didn't speak, just stood still in the shadows. I couldn't make out their face, but I knew that feeling. I'd felt it every night for weeks. I screamed, but by the time I reached the door, they were gone. I haven't had a message since that night. It's been weeks. I blocked every dating app I had. I changed my phone number. I even moved to a different apartment in a different city. But the weird thing? Sometimes, when I wake up at exactly 3:03 a.m., I still feel like someone's watching me. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if something feels off, listen to that gut feeling. It might be the only thing keeping you safe. And if someone online knows things about you that they shouldn't, don't wait for it to escalate. Get help before it's too late. Sometimes the scariest part isn't what happened, it's knowing that it could happen again. And the scariest thing of all, knowing there's still someone out there watching me. And they might be watching you too. Story 10. I'm Mike, by the way. I was 27 when this happened, living in a small apartment in the city. Not much to say about me, really. A regular guy. I worked a 9-to-5 job at a Manhattan office. Nothing glamorous. Most of my days were pretty typical. Work, eat, Netflix, sleep. On weekends, I'd meet up with friends, grab a drink, but overall, nothing too exciting. Nothing that ever made me feel like something was off until that one night. It started like most modern dating stories do. On a dating app. I know, you're probably thinking this is just another online horror story, but trust me, this one's different. At least, I think it is. I'd been using this app for a while. It wasn't anything fancy, just a basic swipe right kind of deal. The usual back and forth, matching with people, chatting for a bit, some friendly banter. Nothing really stuck though. I was starting to get frustrated. The app was starting to feel like a waste of time. One night, I got a notification about a new match. Her name was Sophie. We had a 100% compatibility score. I thought that was weird. I mean, I'd had matches with 90% or so, but 100? That was rare. Even weirder was the app saying we were a soul bond. I figured it was just some gimmick to get people's attention, but I was intrigued. Her profile was perfect. Like, everything aligned. We had all the same interests: movies, books, music, even weird stuff like hiking and coffee shops. It felt too good to be true, but I didn't question it. It wasn't like I had a lot of options anyway. So we started chatting. Her messages were intelligent, funny, and felt genuine. I don't know why, but I felt comfortable with her almost instantly. There was this strange ease in talking to her, like I'd known her for years. We exchanged a few messages over the next couple of days, and eventually we made plans to meet up. She suggested a cafe in the city center. Nothing fancy, just a casual place, so I agreed. The day of the date came, and I was nervous. I mean, this was the first time I was meeting someone who I'd felt such a weird connection with. It was unnatural, almost, but in a good way, you know? I got to the cafe a little early, and I ordered a coffee while I waited. The place was quiet, with just a couple of people scattered around. Then, I saw her walk in. Sophie. I'll admit, I didn't know what to expect, but she was exactly like her pictures. Even better somehow. She had long, dark hair, soft features, and the kind of smile that made you feel like everything was going to be okay. But there was something off. It was subtle. At first, I thought it was just me being nervous, but Sophie didn't blink, not once. As she walked towards me, her gaze never broke. I tried to shake it off. Maybe she just had really good control over her eyes, right? When she sat down across from me, I could feel the weight of her stare. It was like I was being analyzed. I don't know if that makes sense, but it didn't feel like a regular conversation. She didn't look at me like a person would, more like a machine. I could see the tiny little movements of her hands, the way she shifted slightly in her seat, but there was no breath, no blinking. It felt like she was just staring. "Hey," I said, trying to break the tension. "You look amazing." She smiled, but it was almost too perfect. "Thank you. You do too." It was then that I realized there was something weird about her smile. It wasn't like it was fake. It was just too controlled, too deliberate. We started talking about normal things, work, hobbies, life. But there was an eerie stillness to her, like she was trying too hard to fit in. It was almost like she was imitating someone, like she didn't know how to be human. I couldn't stop looking at her. I kept trying to focus, but the longer I looked, the more it bothered me. She was too perfect. It felt like she was watching me, studying my every move. I wasn't sure if it was just my nerves or if something else was going on. Eventually, she leaned in slightly, her eyes locking onto mine in a way that made my stomach turn. "I need to tell you something," she said softly. I swallowed, feeling my pulse quicken. "Sure, what is it?" I'm not really like other people," she said, her voice almost robotic but with a strange softness. "I've been trying to figure out how to be human. I'm not sure I fully understand it." I chuckled awkwardly, unsure of how to respond. Okay." She didn't laugh. She didn't even crack a smile. Instead, she leaned closer and her expression became more serious. "May I practice being human with you?" The words hit me like a ton of bricks. It was like she wasn't asking me to go out on another date. She wasn't asking for a second drink or to stay longer. She was asking for something else, something far more unsettling. I froze. I didn't know what to say. What do you mean by that?" Her eyes remained unblinking, and she just stared at me. "I'm not like you. I don't know how to breathe, or blink, or laugh." Her words were clipped, almost mechanical, but her tone was calm, measured. "I've been practicing, but I'm still missing something. I need to practice with you." I felt a chill run down my spine. I tried to laugh it off, thinking she was joking, but something told me this wasn't a joke. "You're not," I started, but she interrupted me, her voice getting sharper. "I'm not what?" she said, her smile never fading. "I'm not human? You think I'm not real? You think I'm pretending?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. The longer I sat there, the more I realized she wasn't playing around. She wasn't trying to impress me. She wasn't trying to make a connection. She was studying me, watching me like I was a specimen in a lab. I think I need to go, I said, standing up quickly. My heart was pounding now. This isn't right. Sophie didn't move. She stayed there, staring at me. You don't have to leave, she said quietly. You can stay and help me. I need to learn how to be human. I backed away slowly, trying to stay calm. No, I think you need help. You should see a doctor. She didn't respond to that. Instead, she just stood up too and took a step closer to me. You don't understand, she said softly. I don't need a doctor. I need you. My stomach twisted as I turned and walked out of the cafe, not looking back. I didn't stop walking until I was safely inside my apartment. But even then, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was still watching me, that she was still out there, studying me. I deleted the app that night, blocked her number, changed everything. But even now, when I'm out in public or on the subway, I sometimes feel like someone is watching me, like Sophie is still out there, trying to learn how to be human. Sometimes the scariest part isn't what happened, it's knowing that she could be anywhere, trying to learn again. If you made it this far, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more stories that might just keep you up at night.